3 lines from the bottom on page Payal. At the end of the line, we're talking about now Bekalim versus Oiris. And of course, intuitively, Oiris are in a different category completely, are much superior to Kalim. But in fact, the whole significance of Kalim, their zone d'etre, so to speak, is because they are able to contain and bring out the Oiris. However, we are now discovering that Kalim are really, in essence, in terms of the original concept, are superior to Oir. And Oiris are bent on designing themselves in a manner that they could be able to fit in Keli. This is the medida, the measuring in the Oiris. This phenomenon of the Oiris versus the Kelim, and ultimately the revelation and the identification, the mila of the superiority of Kelim, that comes after the Kelim are nizdachich. After that the Kelim have been refined to the point where they actually absorb the oil, allow the oil to come through in the full sense, then you see the mile of the Kelim. And here is where we're going to discuss it. 3 lines from the bottom, at the end of the line. In the initial state of the hishavos of creation, harem hishavos ha'oir. So there behold the opposites, from the coarseness of the oil, from the fact that the oil has descended to the point of acquiring a coarse quality. Not a hakeli. This is what enables a keli to come into being. So if we should take a very simple conceptual illustration of this concept, we have, for example, talking in very, very simple terms, we have a multitude of things gathered together. Let's say you have 1 million of people. Ultimately, 1 million becomes 1 million only if you have an exact number of 10. A lot of people that don't constitute 1 million. It has to be a certain number. This certain number is where the oil fits into a cave. You have a clear definition of what you're looking for. Initially, the oil, there are many people. Many people is a very bright situation. But then, when this many people, this brightness, is his avos, becomes concise. It's lowered to the point where you begin to count. Okay, how many? That is where you have the element of Kelim. a count of 1, 2, 3, 4. When you say many, you have no keli for it. Although it is tremendous gilui oyer. So when this oyer is misave, comes down to a lower level, to a more tangible level. It's not just many. It's actually just the exact number. And this many consists of many individuals. And every individual counts unto himself. This is the hisavus. Because when you say many, the many blend with each other. There is no individuals. And it's a wonderful state. But this joining together at that blended state, ultimately that state comes to the point where it becomes identified individually. You come into a group of people and you meet all the people. Each person all of a sudden acquires a name. Each person acquires an origin and the reason why you're here. All of a sudden there are a whole bunch of individuals. The blending of the group is a much higher state than the presence of the individuals. But it is the presence of the individuals that ultimately give a sense of a keli, a sense of reality, what is going on over here. And so this is what means Avos oil. This is when the oil comes down on lower. It comes down, comes off its lofty, superior state. Nasa keli. This is where the keli becomes to be it begins to be identified, and then the oil ultimately is placed into the keli, and you read to the oil through the keli. When you say there are people in shul, your question is not there are many people. Is there a minyan? If there are a minyan, that's a completely different question. There is many. Okay, so we have a kind of an identification of this concept. So at this point, the oil precedes the keli. The oil is superior to the keli. At the state where the oil is many, all the people together. A real blend of human goodness. But then when this hisavus, when this ultimately becomes identified, then it brings about the presence of the keli. It actually creates a keli. So this is how the keli comes to be. V'chein hu b'hamedido. The same is true regarding the initial principle of medido, means measuring, surmising.
Where are we now, Mark?
2 lines from the bottom.
Okay.
The b'sharsham were in the initial, in the essence, in the source, in the conceptualization, medidas hakelim kodom limdidas hoiris. Just as we finished saying in terms of the kelim, of the presence of the kelim, the presence of the oiris, the concept of kelim. The concept of kelim preceded the concept of oiris. because it's rooted in the shoresh deeper. But then when it comes to actualization, to revealing it, the opposite is true. The oil comes first and the keli comes from the oil. Similarly, the medida, the principle of medida, or the principle of applying a measure. The principle of medida, of measure, so we know that in the koyches hanefesh of the human being, there is rotze, then there is chochma bina v'das, and then there is the midas. Rotzein is a super reality. Rotzein really does not even belong to the human being. This is the godly presence in the human being. Then there is chochma bina v'das. Chochma bina v'das identifies certain principles in this rotz. And then from das begin to be surfacing what's called midos. What's midos? What does the word mido mean? Mido means a measure. A measure means that you have now identified something that can be very limited, very focused, very much measured, and that becomes the full force of the nefesh is vested in that. For example, chesed, goodness and kindness. This is the measured presence of the nefesh. Focus exactly. This comes in aftermath. After that there is seichel, and after that there is rotzen. If there is no rotzen and there's no seichel, there's no midas. But when there is seichel and midas, seichel and rotzen, then there is a midah. The midah is of such concentrated power that one actually can identify the full power of the nefesh through this midah. You want to do somebody a favor. It may be a big favor, it may be a small favor. Maybe very significant, maybe not less significant. But the principle that you're involved in doing him a favor and you go out of your way to do that favor, this shows the koyach hanefesh being molded, being measured and focused in a certain limited activity. And it's a nefesh reality. This measurement, so as we said many times, this is where we need to understand. This measurement, when a person is involved in doing a favor, is he at this time, I'm asking a question now, please think, is he at this time a full-fledged human being, or is just that person who is able to do this favor? Okay, did you say Hamapil in this lesson?
Full steps, human being.
So this medida is not to say that this is all he has. This is taking the entire human being and measuring him and in a certain way. With the touch midas, measures. So this medida, the Bishosham were in the original source, in the root state. In the root state, medidas hakelim kodum limdidas oiris. We just finished saying that the oiris have self-identity, and the oiris are what ultimately identifies the kelim and creates the kelim. The sabos oir not a kelim. We identify a certain measure in the oil, and that is what creates the kelim. But really, if we go back to the source, to the initial state, the kelim, the measure of the kelim precedes the oil. This is like saying that in our motion, that the ability to identify a value in doing a specific favor to somebody is superior to the essential sense of goodness and kindness. But medidas hoiris kodum, medida kodum medidas hoiris. Although, as we know it, in order to identify this idea of the favor, you have to have a sense of kindness and goodness. That's what I'm saying. Ragbi his gallows, only in the state of his gallows and of expression of revelation, medidas oil kodem. There, the measure of the oil is first. When a person has a feeling of kindness, has a sense of kindness, that same person is able to be angry. That same person is able to have all kinds of other inclinations. It's not just that quality, but this is an oyer coming from the nefesh of kindness and goodness. That's a measure that is applied to the oyer on nefesh. In other words, applying the measure to oyer on nefesh is saying that to be kind is not just a good deed. It is a nefesh quality. It represents a real nefesh presence, a living nefesh. Like we say, to be sensitive is a nefesh quality. So that's why I'm saying that the kelim and oiris interchange in terms of what extent they represent the essence. In essence, ultimately the actual deed of kindness. This is what is most deeply rooted in the nefesh. But as it comes to a state of revelation, there the sense of sensitivity precedes the sense of the definition of what the action is. Sensitivity
precedes the action.
The sense of the action. I don't know who is with me, and the reason for this is that when it comes to his galus, there is not. This is already an expression of the real thing. This is not the real thing itself. In other words, it's outside of the real thing. And it's applied to something else. Therefore, first you have to identify the something else. You identify that this something else is worthy of this kind of sensitivity. If a person is sensitive, pardon me, to a dog, is that a human, a nefesh quality? Even though the Torah says, Tzar Balachayim, but this is nothing to do with sensitivity. It's just a practical thing. Sensitivity means that there is an identification of what you're sensitive to. So there, the oil surfaces first. And then afterwards, then when the oil is fully identified, then comes the identity of the keli. So we have like this. At the root state, the keli is superior, comes first in the oil. At the revelation state, the oil is precedes the keli. Behu inyan, this is the very point, the machshava eretz kodma. What it says is a question in the Gemara: what preceded in the creation? Was Shamayim first or Eretz first? So, turn the page and the next, and just the top words will be his havas Shamayim kodma. In the actual his havas in actual creation, Shamayim were first to be created, and then came the Oretz. Whereas in Machshava, in the intent, in the thought, there, Eretz kodma, there is preceded. So we had this discussion yesterday, quite extensively, about the bias and the furnishings and so forth. That even though in practice and in the relation in terms of concept, the bias is conceptualized first in terms of his galus, but its origin is from the furnishings, because that is where the human being functions in the full sense. It says in Chayim, that the kav is this, as it says, the thin line coming from right after the tzimtzum all the way to the bottom of the creation. What is a thin line? It's a line consisting of various oiris, various points of oiris. And this hamshochas hakav, it comes from an infinite presence of oir. But then, as a result of the tzimtzum, only a thin draw, point after point, comes through into his talshim. Hamshochas hakav hu. Sometimes the kav was nimshach b'kdei la'aseh ismailo matu. It is in order to facilitate and to bring about the presence and the identity of Milo and Mato. Now there is such thing as something higher and something lower. Because in the Kav, everything comes in a certain order, point beneath point. So therefore there is a principle of Milo Mato. There is that which is closer to the source and that which is further away. Which means if the Hamshach would have come directly from the Oirin Seif, not through the means and the process of the Kav, there would not be the whole principle of higher and lower in Oilamis. Now this is this needs to be elaborated a little bit and understood. As we say all the time, that, like we said just a moment ago, that when a person does a simple action of any kind, there is a whole human force behind it. The whole human being is needed. But that whole human being is now come through a measuring line, and it is focused exclusively to a single sensitivity, a single point, a narrow point. This is like the Hamshachas HaKav. This Kav is rooted in the entire truth of the human being. So conceptually, it should be possible for the human being to do anything, like for example, to write, because he wants to write, not because he's making his hand move in a certain way. That's where it originates. And yet, in order to write, he has to withdraw and bring out just a certain point of what he is doing. When a person writes, he's writing an idea. This idea originates in his nefesh, originates in his rotzen and noineg, and in his seichel and midas and so forth. At that state, it is not expressible, it's not writable. But then he draws and he focuses in a certain fashion to identify certain points in this idea. These points allow for Milo Mato. What does that mean, Milo Mato? If a person writes, in the writing, there are several levels. There's a concept which is superior to the action of writing. In the action of writing itself, there are the means, the words and sentences via which he expresses the idea. And then there's the letters in which bring it out. This is all possible only because it comes in a kav form. All of that exists in the nefesh. But if it comes directly from the nefesh, there would be no Milo Mato. There would be no first and second. In order to write, everyone understands, in order to write, you have to first conceptualize, and then design then design the sentence, design the word, and then write the word letter by letter. So this focus on the kav form, this is, I think I'm trying to say, this is what measures, applies measure to the oil hanefesh. And then the Chaim speaks about this in worlds. The kav is instrumental in creating the worlds in the manner that there is milo mato. Okay, at the end of the second line, the chol oilam hoya b'hashvo v'chol kalok. If it did not come to the kav, then each word would be all equal. Every part of the world would be equal to every other part. Chol kalok in all its sections, all the parts. And in the world would not be able to identify. It would not surface. It would not be significant. Chelki Yusfiris, the various portion of Yusfiris, 10 Sfiris, that there is 10 Sfiris in the world. Commissioner Kosov.
Mavasharim.
Movishorim. Commissioner Kosov b'Movishorim. Ve'al kein hu ha'hamshoch al ha'kav. And this is the reason that the hamshoch is to the kav. Begdei sheyiya milo mato. In order to facilitate and bring out in the world, in the whole structure of the world, the principle of milo mato, upper and lower. What does upper and lower mean? And here is the principle. The Yais Shehakav, because being that the Kav Bekotzeho Elyoin in its upper edge, it is touching and Dovung and is united with and the cleave is one with the Ein Soy. Ubekotzeho Hatachtoin, and in its lower edge, Ein Nimshach ad Oir. Okay, this is it's a new idea over here. Before we go into that, I just have to introduce something. Oil in Seif, even though there was a tzimtzum in Oil in Seif, Oil in Seif remains in Seif. Except it now becomes, so to speak, a makif. And into the world, it is nimshach just a limited revelation. But the Oyin Soif still remains, which means the Oyin Soif is still encompassing the entire world from all directions. So therefore, the kav, as it's nimshach from the top, from the top edge where it's connected to Oyin Soif, if it goes all the way down, it can go through the entire world and reconnect to Oyin Soif on the bottom of the world, on the other side, on the other edge. But this is not what happens. The kav on the other, that's what Rebbe says. Because in its lower edge, it is not nimshach all the way to the Oyin Soif HaSoiviv, that it's at Soiviv under the world. It doesn't reconnect on the other edge. It remains, so to speak, contained within the world. And therefore it is not connected to any soul. And therefore, as a result of that, therefore this creates in the kav the principle of Rosh Sof, top and end, because anything that is the closer it is to the source, this is the milo. That's what milo mato represents. More of the source or less of the source. So if the kav were going all the way to the bottom and connect at the bottom, then there would be no difference.
It wouldn't really be a kav.
But it is a kav, but it is connected, and the effect is from both sides.
Short circuit.
But here that remains just a kav, and therefore the bottom of the kav is really is really not in the same category as the top of the cup. See, this is it.
Disconnected.
Oh yeah, that's what we just learned about.
Right. So, are we still interested in continuing?